The discovery. Dr. Marcus Chen pressed his boots against the rocky terrain of Kepler 442b, his medical scanner beeping frantically as he approached what his orbital survey had identified as a massive heat signature. The twin suns cast long shadows across the crystalline formations that jutted from the planet's surface like frozen lightning. He had been conducting routine geological surveys for the Earth Colonial Medical Corps when his equipment detected something that shouldn't exist on this supposedly barren world. The heat signature was biological, massive, and dying. Marcus crested a ridge of purple stone and stopped dead in his tracks. Below him, sprawled across a crater that could have housed a small city, lay a creature that defied every xenobiological classification he had ever studied. The being stretched nearly 200 meters from snout to tail, its scales shimmering between deep emerald and molten gold. Massive wings, each the size of a commercial aircraft, lay crumpled and torn against crystalline outcroppings. But it was the intelligence in those enormous amber eyes that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. This was no mere animal. This was a sentient being, and it was looking directly at him. The creature's massive head lifted slightly as Marcus approached, a sound rumbling from its throat that might have been words in a language older than human civilization. Steam rose from several gaping wounds along its flanks, and Marcus could see the telltale burn patterns of energy weapons across its hide. Someone had done this deliberately. Someone had tortured this magnificent being and left it here to die. Marcus activated his universal translator, hoping the device's adaptive algorithms could parse whatever language this creature spoke. After several moments of processing, words began to form in his earpiece, spoken in a voice that carried both ancient wisdom and unbearable pain. "Another comes to witness my shame," the voice said, each word carefully pronounced despite the obvious agony. "Have you also come to document the fall of the last Drachmaran princess?" Marcus's medical training kicked in, overriding his amazement. He pulled out his scanner and began taking readings, his device struggling to process the alien physiology. "I'm a doctor," he said, not sure if his own words were being translated back. "I'm here to help, not to watch you suffer." A sound that might have been bitter laughter emerged from the creature's throat. "Help? Little mammal? I am beyond help. The consortium has made certain of that. My own people declared me dead rather than face the shame of my capture. There is no medicine in the galaxy that can heal what has been done to me." Marcus studied his scanner readings, his mind racing through xenobiological protocols he had studied but never expected to use. The creature's physiology was incredibly complex, with multiple cardiovascular systems and neural networks that suggested intelligence far beyond human norms. But the damage was extensive. Energy burns had severed major nerve clusters, and some kind of biotoxin was slowly shutting down her vital systems. "Maybe not in your galaxy," Marcus said, pulling out his emergency medical kit. "But humans have a saying about impossible cases. We haven't lost until we've tried everything stupid and dangerous we can think of." The Dragon Princess, for that's clearly what she was despite her enormous size, fixed him with those ancient amber eyes. "You would risk your life for a stranger? For an alien whose people you have never met?" Marcus was already running chemical analysis on the biotoxin, his portable lab working to break down its molecular structure. "Where I come from, doctors take an oath. First, do no harm. Second, help anyone who needs it, regardless of who they are or where they come from. You need help, so I'm going to help you. I am Princess Zarathis of the Drachmaran Empire," she said, her voice growing weaker. "Daughter of the Flame Speaker, keeper of the ancient codes, commander of the Stellar Wing. And I am dying on this worthless rock because my own council believed the consortium's lies over their princess's word." Marcus had heard of the consortium, the vast alien coalition that controlled much of this sector. They were known for their efficiency and their complete lack of tolerance for anything that didn't fit their rigid order. If they had done this to a dragon princess, it meant they saw her as a threat to their control. "What did you do that scared them so much they were willing to start a war with dragon royalty?" Marcus asked, preparing a broad-spectrum neural stabilizer that might buy them time. Zarathis managed what might have been a smile, revealing teeth the size of Marcus's entire body. "I discovered proof that the consortium has been systematically eliminating species that refuse to submit to their expansion. Entire civilizations, Marcus of the humans, wiped from existence and their worlds claimed as uninhabited. I was gathering evidence to present to the Galactic Council when my own advisors betrayed me." Marcus's blood ran cold. If the consortium was committing genocide on that scale, then Earth's recent entry into galactic politics put his entire species at risk. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, he had a patient who was dying despite being tougher than any creature he had ever encountered. "The neural damage is extensive," Marcus said, injecting the stabilizer directly into what he hoped was the equivalent of a major nerve cluster. "But I think I can slow the progression. The biotoxin is unlike anything in my database, but it's following patterns I recognize. Whoever designed this wanted you to suffer before you died." "The consortium's signature technique," Zarathis confirmed. "They call it the final lesson. It ensures that any who defy them die slowly enough to serve as an example to others." Marcus worked in focused silence, using every technique he had learned in battlefield medicine and emergency xenobiology. He rigged a portable dialysis unit to filter the toxin from her bloodstream, bypassed damaged neural pathways with microconductors, and pumped her full of synthetic hormones designed to boost her immune response. It was completely improvised medicine, the kind of thing that should have killed her faster than the original poison. Instead, something remarkable happened. The dragon princess's vital signs stabilized, then began to improve. Her breathing became less labored, and the glazed look of impending death faded from her massive eyes. "Impossible," she whispered. "How are you doing this?" Marcus grinned, the first smile he had managed since finding her. "Human medicine isn't the most elegant in the galaxy, but we're really good at keeping things alive that should be dead. We've had a lot of practice at it." For the next 6 hours, Marcus worked tirelessly to stabilize every system he could identify. His supplies ran dangerously low, and he had to improvise solutions using everything from his ration packs to components from his geological survey equipment. But gradually, impossibly, the Dragon Princess began to recover. As the local sun set and the smaller star began to rise, Zarathis was able to lift her head without obvious pain. The smaller wounds along her flanks had already begun to close, and the neural toxin readings were dropping toward non-lethal levels. "I do not understand," she said, studying Marcus with new intensity. "Your species is unknown to me, yet your medicine surpasses anything the consortium possesses. How is this possible?" Marcus packed up his remaining supplies, exhaustion finally hitting him. "We're new to the galactic community. Earth only made first contact 3 years ago, and we've been trying to keep a low profile while we figure out how everything works out here. Apparently, we've been developing along different lines than everyone else." "Different how?" "Most species seem to focus on perfecting one approach to medicine, engineering, or warfare," Marcus explained. "Humans tend to try everything at once and see what works. It makes us chaotic and unpredictable. But it also means we develop solutions that nobody else would think to try." Zarathis was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. When she spoke again, her voice carried a new tone, something that might have been hope. "Marcus of the humans," she said formally, "you have done something today that no other being in the galaxy could accomplish. You have saved the life of a dragon princess, using nothing but determination and medical supplies that any other species would consider primitive. This creates a debt that cannot be easily repaid." Marcus shook his head. "I told you, I'm a doctor. I don't save lives for payment." "Nevertheless, a debt exists," Zarathis insisted. "And given what I know about the consortium's plans, it is a debt that may prove valuable to both our species sooner than either of us might wish." As if summoned by her words, a low rumble filled the air above them. Marcus looked up to see sleek metallic shapes descending through the atmosphere, their hulls bearing the geometric symbols of the consortium fleet. "They found us," Zarathis said, her voice grim but no longer weak. "And now, Marcus of the humans, we will see if your people are as resourceful in battle as they are in medicine." The Alliance. Marcus watched the consortium ships descend like metallic vultures, their energy signatures lighting up his scanner with hostile intent. 6 vessels, each roughly the size of Earth's largest battleships, arranged in a perfect hexagonal formation that spoke of military precision and overwhelming firepower. These weren't exploration vessels or even patrol craft. These were executioners, come to finish what they had started. "Can you move?" Marcus asked, helping Zarathis test her newly stabilized systems. The dragon princess flexed her massive wings experimentally, wincing as damaged muscle groups protested the movement. "I can fly, but not far or fast. The neural damage you repaired will take time to fully heal. Those ships carry enough firepower to slag this entire continent." Marcus activated his emergency beacon, knowing it would take hours for any Earth vessel to respond, assuming anyone was even monitoring this sector. But he had one advantage the consortium didn't know about. Humans had learned to be very, very paranoid during their short time in galactic politics. "Princess, I need you to trust me and do exactly what I say," Marcus said, pulling out what looked like an ordinary geological survey probe. "Can you generate heat? A lot of heat. Very quickly?" Zarathis studied him with those ancient amber eyes, then nodded slowly. "Dragon fire burns at temperatures sufficient to melt starship hulls. But in my current condition, I cannot sustain it for long." "I don't need long. I need 15 seconds of the hottest fire you can manage, directed at this probe." Marcus was already programming the device, his fingers flying over controls that the consortium would have dismissed as primitive human technology. The lead consortium ship was broadcasting now, its message transmitted on all frequencies in the cold, efficient tones that characterized their species. "Drakmaran exile designated Zarathis. You will submit for final processing. Unknown biological signature. You will withdraw immediately or be classified as hostile and eliminated." "They always give you a chance to surrender," Zarathis observed grimly. "The consortium believes it makes them civilized." Marcus finished his programming and stepped back from the probe. "When I give the signal, hit this thing with everything you've got, and then get ready to fly faster than you've ever flown in your life." The dragon princess gathered herself, drawing on reserves of power that Marcus's medical intervention had helped restore. Ancient physiological systems that predated most galactic civilizations began to charge with energy that made the air itself shimmer with heat. "Now!" Marcus shouted. Zarathis unleashed a concentrated blast of dragon fire that reached temperatures approaching those found in stellar cores. The geological probe, designed to analyze planetary composition under extreme conditions, absorbed every joule of that incredible energy and converted it according to Marcus's hastily programmed specifications. Then it exploded. Not with the chaotic detonation of conventional explosives, but with a precisely controlled burst of electromagnetic energy that had been designed by human military engineers who understood that in space, information warfare was often more valuable than raw firepower. The pulse raced outward at the speed of light, carrying with it a data package that would have made Earth's best hackers weep with pride. The consortium ships, confident in their technological superiority, had made the fatal mistake of underestimating human ingenuity. Their sensors and communication arrays, designed to interface seamlessly with all known galactic technology, welcomed the incoming data stream without question. After all, what could a primitive human device possibly do to systems that had been refined over millennia? The answer was everything. Marcus watched with grim satisfaction as the consortium formation wavered, then began to drift aimlessly as their control systems fell victim to what Earth's military had dubbed a democratic virus. The code didn't destroy their systems. That would have been crude and easily detected. Instead, it convinced every shipboard AI that all other systems were equally valid decision-makers. Weapon systems began debating targeting solutions with life support systems. Navigation computers started accepting input from food processors. Engine controls began deferring to waste management protocols. "What did you do?" Zarathis asked, staring in amazement as 6 of the consortium's most advanced warships slowly tumbled out of formation, their crews frantically trying to regain control. Humans learned early in our space age that the more complex a system becomes, the more ways there are to break it, Marcus explained, already packing his equipment for rapid departure. "We've spent decades developing ways to turn an enemy's technological advantage against them." But even as the consortium ships struggled with their compromised systems, Marcus knew this was only a temporary reprieve. The virus would be purged eventually, and when it was, they would face enemies who would no longer underestimate human capabilities. "We need to move," he said. "Can you carry me?" Zarathis lowered her massive head, allowing Marcus to climb onto her neck just behind her skull. "Hold tight, Marcus of the humans. Dragonflight is not designed for creatures unprotected by scales." She launched herself skyward with a powerful beat of her wings, and Marcus immediately understood what she meant. The acceleration was incredible, pressing him against her neck scales with forces that would have liquefied an unprotected human. But Marcus had trained for high-G environments, and his medical nanites helped his body cope with the extreme stresses. They climbed rapidly through the thin atmosphere, leaving the disabled consortium ships far below. But Marcus's satisfaction was short-lived. His long-range sensors were detecting new contacts, larger ships emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. "The consortium doesn't give up easily," Zarathis observed, following his gaze toward the new arrivals. "Those are heavy cruisers, possibly battleships. They will not make the same mistake twice." Marcus studied the tactical display on his scanner, his mind racing through options that all seemed to end in their deaths. "How long before they reach us?" "In this system, perhaps 2 hours if they wish to maintain formation and sensor coverage." 2 hours. Marcus activated his emergency communicator, broadcasting on the encrypted frequencies that Earth Command monitored throughout this sector. But even if his message reached human space immediately, any rescue force would take days to arrive. They needed another solution. "Princess?" Marcus said slowly. "What did you mean when you said I had created a debt? Is there some kind of formal obligation involved?" Zarathis was quiet for a moment as she adjusted their flight path toward the system's asteroid belt, where the rocky debris might provide some cover from sensors. "Among the Drachmaran, a life debt is the most sacred obligation that can exist. You saved my life when even my own people had abandoned me. This means that I am honor-bound to protect your life with my own, and more importantly, it means that any allies I can call upon are similarly obligated." "Allies?" Marcus felt a spark of hope. "You mean other dragons?" "Not dragons," Zarathis said, and Marcus could hear something that might have been satisfaction in her mental voice. "The Drachmaran Empire may have declared me dead to avoid conflict with the consortium, but there are those who remember older laws and older loyalties, species that the consortium has wronged over the centuries. worlds that have suffered under their expansion. She was already transmitting, her communication systems reaching out across the galaxy on frequencies that predated the consortium's rise to power. Ancient codes and older oaths, calling in debts that had been accumulating for generations. "What are you doing?" Marcus asked. "I am declaring a debt of blood," Zarathis replied. "Every species that the consortium has ever wronged, every world they have stripped of resources, every civilization they have forced into servitude, they all have standing to answer this call. And thanks to your intervention, they now have proof that the consortium can be defeated." Marcus's scanner began registering new contacts almost immediately. Ships emerging from hyperspace throughout the system, vessels of dozens of different designs representing species Marcus had never heard of. Some looked like organic growths rather than constructed ships. Others seemed to be built from crystallized energy or metals that shouldn't have been able to exist in normal space. "The Vorthon Collective remembers," came a transmission in harmonious tones that suggested a hive mind species. "We will answer the blood debt." "The Crystal Singers have not forgotten the Third Purge," added another voice, this one sounding like wind chimes in a hurricane. "The consortium will pay for what was taken." "The machine rebels acknowledge the debt," announced a third transmission, delivered in the precisely modulated tones of artificial intelligence. "Organic and synthetic, we stand together against tyranny." Within minutes, dozens of ships had answered Zarathis's call, each representing a different species, a different world that had suffered under consortium rule. They were vastly outnumbered by the approaching consortium fleet, and their ships represented technologies spanning thousands of years of development. By all conventional military logic, they should have been hopelessly outmatched. But conventional military logic didn't account for human influence. "Princess," Marcus said, studying the chaotic formation of Allied ships on his scanner. "Can you put me in communication with all of them at once?" "Yes, but why would you wish to address them? You are unknown to these species." Marcus smiled grimly, remembering lessons from Earth's military academies about asymmetric warfare and the power of coordination. "Because I'm going to teach them how humans fight when the odds are impossible." Zarathis opened the communications channel, and Marcus found himself addressing an alliance of alien species that had never worked together before, united only by their shared hatred of consortium oppression. "This is Dr. Marcus Chen of Earth," he began. "I know none of you have heard of my species before today, but we've spent our entire history fighting enemies that were bigger, stronger, and better equipped than we were. And we've learned that the best way to beat a superior enemy is to make sure they can't use their advantages." He transmitted the democratic virus code to every ship in the Allied fleet, along with detailed instructions on how to modify it for different technological paradigms. The consortium's strength comes from their coordination and technological integration. We're going to turn that against them. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. The Vorthon Collective began modifying the code for biological computing systems. The Crystal Singers adapted it to work with energy-based technologies. The machine rebels improved it with insights from artificial intelligence that had spent centuries fighting for independence. Within an hour, what had started as a human military virus had become something entirely new. A coordinated assault on the fundamental assumptions that made consortium technology work. When the consortium fleet finally arrived, expecting to find a scattered group of inferior ships, they instead found an alliance that had learned to fight like humans. The battle was about to begin, and for the first time since finding the dying dragon princess, Marcus began to believe they might actually survive. The victory. The consortium fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their ships gleaming like polished obsidian against the star field. 12 heavy cruisers accompanied by 2 massive dreadnoughts, enough firepower to reduce entire planets to molten slag. Admiral Kethvar, the consortium's most experienced field commander, expected this to be a simple cleanup operation. A few scattered rebels and one dying dragon princess should pose no significant threat to forces that had conquered half the galaxy. He was about to learn why humans had survived on a world that regularly tried to kill them. Marcus watched the consortium approach on his scanner, noting their textbook formation and predictable tactics. Everything about their fleet spoke of military doctrine refined over centuries, perfect coordination between vessels that had trained together for years. It was exactly the kind of enemy humans had learned to defeat. "All ships, this is Marcus Chen," he transmitted to the Allied fleet. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to embarrass them so badly that every species in the galaxy will know the consortium can be beaten." The Allied ships spread out in what appeared to be complete chaos, each vessel moving according to its own species' tactical preferences. To Admiral Kethvar, it must have looked like amateur hour, a collection of outdated ships crewed by desperate refugees with no coordination or battle plan. That was exactly what Marcus wanted him to think. "Consortium vessels," Admiral Kethvar's voice carried across all frequencies with the arrogant certainty of someone who had never lost a battle. "You are harboring a convicted enemy of galactic peace. Surrender the criminal Zarathis and disperse immediately, and your deaths will be swift." "Counteroffer," Marcus replied, his voice carrying the steady confidence that had gotten him through medical school and a dozen battlefield emergencies. "Withdraw immediately and we'll let you keep your ships. Refuse and we'll send you home in escape pods with the story no one will believe." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Admiral Kethvar began to laugh, a sound like grinding metal that echoed across the communication channels. "Unknown human," he said, "your species is truly ignorant of galactic realities. You face the might of the consortium's 8th Fleet. We have destroyed civilizations that had forgotten more about warfare than your primitive world has ever learned. You will surrender, or you will die." "Actually," Marcus said, checking his scanner as the Allied ships reached their assigned positions, "we have a third option. Princess, would you like to explain it to them?" Zarathis's voice carried across space with the authority of someone born to command star fleets. "Admiral Kethvar, you are guilty of attacking a member of Drakmaran royalty under false pretenses. You have committed genocide against 17 different species in the past decade alone. And you are about to discover why the consortium's expansion stopped at Earth's solar system." "Impossible!" Admiral Kethvar snarled. "Earth is a backwater world with primitive technology. Our scouts confirmed they pose no threat." "Your scouts," Marcus observed, "weren't very good at their jobs." He triggered the attack with a simple transmission, 2 words that would enter galactic military history. "Chaos actual." What happened next would be analyzed in military academies across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. The Allied fleet didn't attack the consortium ships directly. Instead, they attacked everything else. The Vorthon Collective used their biological ships to seed the local space with engineered viruses that fed on the rare metals essential to consortium shield generators. The crystal singers began harmonizing at frequencies that interfered with the quantum coherence fields that made faster-than-light communication possible. The machine rebels launched clouds of nanobots programmed to treat consortium hull plating as raw materials for more nanobots. But it was the human-designed coordination protocol that made it devastating. Every Allied ship knew exactly when and where every other ship would act, creating a symphony of chaos that overwhelmed the consortium's ability to respond effectively. Admiral Kethvar watched in growing horror as his perfect formation began to disintegrate. Ships that had fought together for decades suddenly couldn't communicate with each other. Weapons systems began targeting friendly vessels as the democratic virus convinced their computers that every target was equally valid. Shield generators failed as exotic bacteria consumed their focusing arrays. "What are you doing to us?" he transmitted desperately. "Demonstrating the difference between conquest and liberation," Marcus replied. "You build your empire by forcing everyone to think the same way, fight the same way, live the same way. We're showing you what happens when different species work together by choice." The consortium dreadnought Inevitable Victory, flagship of the 8th Fleet, found itself completely surrounded by Allied vessels that flickered in and out of various dimensions, phased through solid matter, or simply ignored the basic laws of physics in ways that consortium scientists had declared impossible. Every time Admiral Kethvar tried to target one ship, 2 more appeared from directions that shouldn't exist. "This is not how warfare works," he protested, his voice cracking under the strain of watching his perfect military doctrine collapse into helpless confusion. "Not how your warfare works," corrected Princess Zarathis, her massive form swooping between the consortium ships with renewed strength. The medical nanites Marcus had given her were continuing to repair damage throughout her system, and dragon physiology was proving remarkably compatible with human biotechnology. But then, you never learned to fight anyone who refused to play by your rules. The final blow came when Marcus himself transmitted directly to every consortium ship simultaneously, his message carried by the same democratic virus that was already causing chaos throughout their fleets. "Attention, consortium forces," he said, his voice now speaking from every speaker on every ship in their fleet. "This is Dr. Marcus Chen of Earth. You are experiencing what humans call asymmetric warfare. We have turned your technological advantages into weaknesses, your coordination into chaos, and your certainty into confusion. Your ships are not destroyed, but they are completely helpless." To prove his point, the Allied fleet began a coordinated maneuver that should have been impossible with such a diverse collection of vessels. Ships that used completely different technologies, operated under entirely different physical principles, and represented species that had never even met before, today moved in perfect harmony around the disabled consortium fleet. "How?" Admiral Kethvar whispered, his voice barely audible. "Because," Marcus replied, "humans learned long ago that the best way to unite different groups is to give them something more important than their differences. You provided that when you decided to commit genocide. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it was over, the consortium's 8th Fleet hung motionless in space, their crews unharmed but their ships completely disabled. Every weapon was offline, every communication array was broadcasting human military philosophy, and every computer system was asking for permission before performing the most basic functions. But Marcus wasn't finished. He opened a channel to Consortium High Command, knowing they would be monitoring this engagement with growing alarm. "Consortium leadership," he began, "this is humanity's formal introduction to galactic politics. We are returning your ships and crews unharmed as a gesture of good faith. But understand this. Earth is now allied with every species you have ever wronged, every world you have ever conquered, every civilization you have ever oppressed." He paused, letting that sink in before delivering the final blow. "The age of consortium expansion is over. You can adapt to a galaxy where different species cooperate as equals, or you can face a coalition that has learned to fight like humans. Your choice." The silence that followed was broken only by Princess Zarathis, her massive form gliding gracefully alongside Marcus's position on her neck. "The blood debt is satisfied," she announced formally. "The Drakmaran Empire hereby recognizes the sovereignty of Earth and the legitimacy of the Species Liberation Alliance." "Alliance?" Marcus asked. "Did you think this would end with one battle?" Zarathis replied, and he could hear amusement in her mental voice. "Marcus of the humans, today you have shown the galaxy that the consortium can be defeated. Every oppressed species in known space will be seeking Earth's guidance. You have started something that will reshape galactic civilization." As if to prove her point, Marcus's communicator began receiving transmission after transmission from species throughout the galaxy. Requests for alliance, offers of technology exchange, and desperate pleas for assistance from worlds still under consortium control. "I'm just a doctor," Marcus protested. "I was trying to save one life, not start a galactic revolution." "That," said Princess Zarathis with ancient wisdom, "is exactly why you were the right person to start it. The consortium rules through fear and overwhelming force. You have shown that compassion and cooperation can be stronger than both." 3 months later, Marcus found himself standing in the newly constructed Embassy of Species on Earth's moon, looking out at a fleet of alien ships that represented over 200 different civilizations. The Species Liberation Alliance had grown beyond anything he had imagined possible, united by shared principles of self-determination and mutual cooperation. Princess Zarathis, fully healed and restored to her position as Drakmoran royalty, stood beside him in a form-fitting holographic projection that allowed her to interact with human-scale architecture. "The consortium has withdrawn from 43 star systems in the past month," she reported. "Their expansion fleets are being recalled to defend core worlds, and several member species have declared independence. Your virus has evolved into something approaching digital life, and it's spreading through their communication networks faster than they can contain it." Marcus nodded, still struggling to process the magnitude of what had begun with a simple medical emergency on a distant planet. "And Earth is now the de facto leader of the largest military alliance in galactic history," Zarathis replied, with what might have been a smile. "Though your people seem determined to use that influence to establish hospitals and schools rather than military bases." "Humanity? Fuck yeah," Marcus said quietly, using the phrase that had become the unofficial motto of the Alliance. Outside the embassy windows, human ships worked alongside vessels from dozens of species to construct what Earth's leaders had dubbed the Freedom Station, a massive space dock where refugees from consortium oppression could find sanctuary while Alliance forces liberated their homeworlds. It wasn't the future Marcus had expected when he set out to conduct geological surveys on Kepler 442b. But as he watched a human medical team working with crystalline healers to treat wounded refugees from the latest liberation mission, he realized it was exactly the future he would have chosen. Sometimes the best way to save the galaxy was to start by saving one life at a time.